Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Well, hello there and welcome to the show. It's a Tuesday. It's the 29th of April. It's a dreary, rainy, miserable day, but at least it's not a violent weather day like some folks are suffering. It's also a Tuesday, which means Sue's Day, and Susan joins us from St. Louis. Hi, Suze.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm fine. It turns out that I'm not only fine, but I'm lucky. I thought that yesterday's little line of afternoon storms that I experienced was no big deal, and I mean my lights flickered on and off 3 or 4 times, but that's sort of normal around here.
Yeah.
And but it turns out there were huge oaks uprooted all around me, across streets, power lines. So
well, I noticed that St. Louis was definitely in a smaller tornado. They had this huge one in the south, and then you were in another, be real careful place. And,
yeah, but there were no sirens or anything. I mean, it was just we have a lot of just bad storms with straight line winds, which can do almost as much damage.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what.
But so far, so good. I'm knocking on wood. I take nothing for granted no more.
No, and the thing is, I mean, no, you live in, I don't know how these people who live in these places that, you hear, well, they were devastated 3 years ago, or the same people, it's sort of like...
Well, I thought but it's so weird because there was a period of 5 years where I lived in one of those alleys, and which is why I had 5 incidences of no power for more than 3 days, somewhere between 3 and 5 days each time. I became like an expert at it, and now the lane has moved just slightly to my north.
I mean, it's that specific? Are you talking about when you lived elsewhere?
It seems to be that specific. It has, for that 5 years, every storm rolled right down this one sort of mile-wide swath, and now it's just moved over like a half a mile. There's part of my neighborhood that's still in it.
How odd. I wonder what the meteor... Well, I wonder
it might hit a little bit to the east, and, the east-northeast path might be a little bit beyond me. It's very strange. And it does seem to be divided almost by highways. It's by major thoroughfares, as if they provide an alley for the storm to sweep down, which they indeed might. Who knows?
I wonder...
Did you hear Jim just pop into our conversation?
Who just popped in? Susan, what'd you say?
Our beloved Jim. I said indeed.
Why don't I understand what you're talking about?
Oh, nothing. Well, if you don't understand what I'm talking about, I'll tell you later, but never mind. Because
Jim.
No one else does.
No, he's your beloved Jim, not mine. And he says indeed a lot? What do you say?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't notice. No. Didn't know. All right. So
he's a gentleman I work with. Don't think I'm two-timing my husband.
No. No, he's a nice guy. Okay, so I've got a few. I see some links in some of the things I've pulled out of various sources. So let's get to it. I think we're going to be finding ourselves talking a lot about the difference between boys and girls, and also school.
Oh yeah, I can think of two right off the top of my head. Not the differences, but conversation.
Yeah, right. So there's a bunch of stuff. For those, so I've gotten some emails from people wondering, how I feel about the big. This is off subject. This is not boys and girls. This has to do with the media.
Sterling.
Yes, of course, the media's story of the du jour.
I'm exhausted already.
Already, right. Just
the only thing I have to say about the whole thing is, how much of this were they going to let slip through when he had sort of been open and notorious for a long time?
Exactly.
And why the hell was the NAACP going to honor him? I mean, a basic little check would have uncovered that lawsuit.
Well, the NAACP in L.A. had honored him even after he'd done. See, he's an oddball. He not only makes these remarks about he doesn't want, renting. They smell. They're lazy. They're just classic stuff. But he also gave a lot of money to black charities and free tickets to black youth groups and all this other stuff to his games, which is why I guess the NAACP had enough to hang an honor on him. And then, of course, when you honor somebody with the deep pockets this guy has, you get money.
You get more money. Right?
So that's clearly what they did, but it's still they shouldn't have because
he
they
liked
knew.
To buy himself a certain image, which is totally interesting in that he clearly knew the right thing to do and the appropriate way to feel, but damn it, he just couldn't feel that way.
Mm-mm. So I mean, he's repulsive. I don't know what's going to happen.
But as far as what his punishment is, being repulsive and being obnoxious in this country does not say that you can't own a team. I mean,
well, that's true, but listen,
you're just the obnoxious guy that owns that team.
Yeah, but somebody told me that he bought that team for $12 million not too long ago, and he can sell it tomorrow for hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. So let's say
I think the way you handle this is you make it so unpleasant for him to own the team that he'll sell it. But I don't think they ever. I can't see how legally they would ever have that.
I think a league has the right to. They probably do have some right to banish a member or to tell him he can't. But I mean, if you were to kick all the racist owners, out. Would you have major league sports teams? If you think about
who's the Mavericks guy, Mark
Cuban,
was saying that he thought that he thought that this guy was disgusting, but it's a very slippery slope when you start kicking owners off because of
things they say and
one
or what they believe
or another. It's hard, which is
This is true.
It's true.
That is true. It is but I mean,
the ACLU exists because they stand to protect the rights of people to hold abhorrent views. That's right.
Right, but what's going to get...
And he makes the interesting case as being the person, as I said, that knows the right thing to do and does it while being totally a pig.
Okay, so he's
a pig in every way. I mean, and who are these women who's married to him, who sits next to him? The guy is an open and notorious louse.
Well, yes, but he's a rich, very rich louse. That explains the women.
And he can buy himself just about everything.
Right, exactly. But, I had a thought. Dang it!
Oh, and they're rare. Come on, find it.
I don't know. It's something about him, and it was about... the NBA commissioner's coming out at 2:00, and he's going to say something or other, and that's not what my thought was. But so we'll see. I can't remember what it was, but
it's going to come around and you'll have to grab its tail quick.
Yeah.
I hate that when that happens.
I know. Well, I'm blaming you because you were talking. You were talking and I couldn't interrupt. And then I started listening to you and then I lost the train. But I don't know. It's this kind of racism that he evidences is so it's so prevalent among his age group that here again, some people know to zip their lips and some don't. He, of course, thought he was talking privately. She seems like a piece of work too.
Well, sure.
She's vile. They're all despicable.
I would hope that if I were an old man, that my girlfriend were recording our every conversation.
I mean,
it shows she's a history buff. Take a lesson from Dick Nixon.
But there is this aspect, though, where he is the racist du jour. He's hardly, I'm sure, the worst racist in the country, but because of the tape, because of the Cavaliers, because of his position, the entire attention of the media focus on him and on it, and the outrage is generated, and there's part of me that I always hate this, this media direction of what we are to be talking about and what we are to be outraged
all the piranhas are in the
by,
same place, and that's all we get to do.
It's why I'm not particularly that interested. I'm sure. Look, the NBA.
You were talking about boys and girls.
I was. But the NBA, the NBA doesn't exist without African Americans. And the fact that there are no. Is it true there are no black owners?
I don't
think
Jay-Z
owns a team.
Jay-Z owns a team? Well, he might own part of one, but I don't think he... And I thought Magic Johnson owned a bit of something. But, I mean...
Well, a lot of these teams are owned by syndicates.
Well, but it's also true of football, too. I mean, you got black men... doing what they do so well in these sports, and there's white men who are paying them and usually coaching them, and I don't know the whole scene.
Well,
I'm
but
just not
and there's some media themes though. We got the stupid rancher talking about how the black people were happier when they were slaves in the plantation, and you have Mr. Louse in L.A. who is telling you that. He knows who they are. He feeds them. He puts clothes on their backs.
It's so offensive. And you read that's what he says, and I'm thinking, listen, you jerk.
Two plantation references in as many days. It's like, ugh.
It's amazing, and that's what he feels. I feed them. They perform a function for you, which you pay them very well for because it ends up lining your pockets. It's a business decision, and you need them in order to make the money. You SOB. I don't know. It's beyond me. People are, So let's not talk about it anymore.
Boys and girls. Deep breath. Boys and girls.
Boys and girls. Okay, so there was a fascinating piece in the New York Times today. And I don't know if you saw it, but it's about something we know about. We constantly hear about the gap between, blacks and whites in schools and this and that. But the gap between girls and boys is actually a larger gap in many ways, and it is growing. Just let me give you a few, for instances, from this piece. The gap, and we know this, the gap in behavioral skills between young girls and boys is huge. When girls enter kindergarten, They are substantially, I mean, you can see this by observation, but also through testing. Girls are more attentive, they're better behaved, they're more sensitive, they're more persistent, they're more flexible, they're more independent. In other words, they're just way out ahead of the boys when they start school. And then you think the gap closes? No. All the research shows that the gap grows between boys and girls over the course of elementary school and then feeds into substantial academic gaps that you see between the sexes. And let me see. The portion of women earning a 4-year college degree, okay, so we're now from kindergarten to college, the portion of women earning a 4-year college degree has jumped more than 75% over the last quarter century. And the fact is that now there are more girls graduating from college than boys. By high school, even math, and this blew me away, even advanced math and science classes now have more girls than boys. And as I said, college graduations, the girls will far outnumber the boys. They say that we have not in any way really responded to this, and the traditional kind of gender roles that we're still using for little boys are just a total disservice to them, because being tough and being strong are not in any way what leads to success in our current world and in our economy. So boys are now less adapted in a lot of major ways for success in the world that exists, but girls are well adapted. So what the hell do we do? Any ideas, Susan? What do we do?
No, I mean it almost seems that as we got sensitized to the notion, and I'm talking about this from a teacher's point of view, to the notion that teachers were routinely favoring boys over girls,
right,
and in terms of who they called on or who, and that as they started to work on ways to even that out, that girls seem to end up in this study overshadowing boys, because we know that's changing. I mean, that might be one of the things. I mean, maybe the other thing is that fashions change, and it's no longer thought to be, unfeminine to be good in the sciences or in math.
Let me ask put forth a radical idea. That girls start kindergarten at 5 or 6 and boys start later.
Well, that's certainly what I did with my son, and boy, did it make a difference.
Okay, but
that's absolutely, clearly part of it. Boys' brains mature at different rates and differently than girls. And at a certain point, high enough up the ladder, it's evened out.
Well,
that as you do these, parallel studies, we know the boys' brains develop differently. That's been proven over and over and over again.
But
and little boys are frequently simply not ready to sit down.
Or still,
and I will be forever grateful to the kindergarten teacher that told me that my little darling wasn't ready and would be better off
waiting a year. Okay.
Preschool than starting kindergarten.
We've got a call. Hello, caller.
Hi, yes. It's funny that you bring this up, because I had this whole thing running through my head yesterday. I was working at Phipps Conservatory out in their Discovery Garden, and a group of must have been kindergartners. I'm not very good at placing children.
But little guys, yeah.
Must have been kindergartners. Must have been the exact group you're talking about. And I observed the boys were and I don't think it has anything to do with going to school. I think this is all from the home life. But really doing really aggressive things and talking about, one little boy was yelling, "We have to save the mission! We have to save the mission!" And I'm assuming that he meant like they were on some kind of military mission. They were all running around, they were all running around and playing, interacting together. And yeah, the girls were just, there was one point where the little boy was screaming at the little girl, "I'm a bear! Oh, I'm a bear!" And she said, "I'm not playing that." Completely put him in his place. But it was all from, you could just tell it was all from their home life. These little games they must play at home, and they must play, if it's video games, maybe.
Well, no, the girls are playing, the little girls are playing video games, too. I just think it has to do with biology more than anything. They just aren't as formed yet. They're slower than girls are, way ahead of them.
But don't you think that, even if that is the case, that and okay, I'll grant you that. They're okay, so let's say they are formed, but still, the outcome, the things that affect that that project themselves through that slowness, and these kind of the kind of aggressiveness and those other things, don't those come from a societal thing? I mean, if they were developed, but they had never experienced anything but pleasant music and whatever, they wouldn't. Would they immediately go to, because they were less developed, go to, oh, let's attack and blah blah blah? I mean, where did that come from?
Well, can I just say that, speaking as a mother, that years ago raised my son in as pacific a way as I possibly could, and no guns, no blah, blah, blah. And he was very into building very complicated things out of a toy group that was called Constructs, where you can build very complicated shapes and things from the time he was a very little child. And so, having raised him thusly, and this is sort of before all of this violent video games were really starting,
right,
or even there, I was in the kitchen, I came out, and next thing I knew, my son had constructed a helmet over his head, a weapon that seemed to look like a machine gun to me. And was some sort of a astronaut superhero lightsaber sort of a guy.
It's like the little cavemen.
Yeah, it's just they're being boys. That's what boys do. That's
what. So then you might be right, Lynn. You start them later, and you give them a little cave and a club up in there.
You know what? It also brings up,
they're physically incapable of being still, a large number.
Yeah, a lot of them. But so, we've been medicating those poor kids. Those little boys are getting Ritalin so they'll sit still, which is disgusting. Oh. So we're medicalizing being a boy, a normal boy. And, it makes me think that the best solution is actually single-gender schools.
Are you serious? Really?
I am. Up to a certain point. At least getting them started. I don't know. I know
that brings up all. You answered one question for me, and now that brings up a whole other thought process. So
I don't know, and obviously I ain't no scholar here, but thank you. But these are real issues. They say that this article says that two of the leading theories of why this is. Well, we got a caller. Hello, caller. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Lynn?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just wondering. I'm interested in your talking with your sister here, but it got me thinking. The difference between boys and girls, could this be one ingredient in the mix, if you will, that girls from the beginning, boys are handed things that girls have to work for?
I think that happens in the home. That's right.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's what I mean. Our society,
right.
Look at all of our leaders are, old white men kind of thing. But girls, they get stuff, but they they don't get it handed to them like boys do.
I agree with you. I think generally when you see adults interacting and parents with more is expected of girls in terms of responsibility and around. I mean, I that's the bias of parents, I guess. I don't know what goes on.
Yeah, and I think maybe it's the bias of human nature as it is right now. But I'm just thinking that girls develop faster. Are more advanced because they have to work harder.
Maybe
they're not given things. Boys can sit back and are handed things. Girls have to, in order to get the things that the boys are handed, have to work for them. I'm not making myself.
No, you are.
No, you're making yourself very clear.
And I think there's truth in it.
I'm just rolling it over in my mind. You're right. I'm sure that there are a lot of parents that do that.
They do.
I think it was interesting, and I was always impressed by the fact that in the schools that my children were raised in middle school, when everybody used to be divided up, and the boys would take shop classes and the girls would take home ec classes, in the district my kids were in, they each took them all.
Yeah.
So boys learned how to sew, girls learned how to work with power tools.
Yeah,
and I was always so thrilled with that because it seemed to me be the first step in equalizing all of us and making all jobs equally important and valuable.
Right.
And if you don't do that in the home, if the girls are the ones that have to come in and help mother in the kitchen, while the boys play TV and dad reads the paper.
That's right.
Then you're giving a certain message. But
That's right.
I think that there's a lot of parents that don't do that anymore, and hopefully in homes where both parents are working, there's a more even modeling, and I say that with a parenthetical and parenthetical. I don't think it's actually true.
Okay. Caller, you had another thought?
I was just going to say, in the school district where my son, who's now 40, went to school,
mine's 3-4.
They had the home ec mixed classes, and what was really funny is it got to the point to where he was the one that always made the pizza. Because his pizza was so good, made from scratch.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And also, well, this is the way my mom kind of did as far as at home. Like, she taught us to cook by the time we were 8 or 9 years old.
Well, that's incredible because, most, given what your age is and where you're coming from, because that's remarkable to me.
Well, and so when I got married and stuff, and with our son, since both my wife and I worked and stuff, I said, how about this? First one home, they cook. They prepare the meal. But then you don't have to clean up.
Yeah, sure.
And by the time our son was like 7 or 8, honest to God,
he was cooking dinner.
We would come home, and he would have, it would be mac and cheese and hot dogs and stuff, but there would be a meal.
Yeah. Oh, how wonderful!
My wife and I still do that.
Whoever is home first.
But yeah.
Well, that sounds wonderful. Yeah, and here's how old I am. When I was in school, boys were not allowed. No boy could take home economics, and no girl could take shop. It was that clear a distinction of what boys did and what girls did. So in that regard, things are a lot better. I got to get a break in, guys.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. You take care, too. Quick break. We'll be right back.
More is on the way with Lynn Cullen Live.
BurghBargains.com is your best bet for great deals in the Burgh. Log on today for exclusive bargains from your favorite events and shows like Pyrofest, City Theater, and the Improv. Plus discounts on gift cards to P.F. Chang's, Wing Hearts, and Rumfish. BurghBargains.com, Pittsburgh's best bargains. BurghBargains.com.
Confusion ever someone or have sudden...
Have you ever had sudden confusion, trouble speaking, or understanding someone?
It could be one of the 5 signs of stroke.
Sudden weakness or numbness of the face, arm, or leg.
Sudden trouble with vision in one or both eyes.
Suddenly having trouble walking or difficulty with balance.
Or a sudden intense headache that comes out of nowhere.
Don't wait. Call 911 immediately.
Time lost is brain lost.
Find out more at powertoendstroke.org. Brought to you by the American Heart Association, American Stroke Association, and the Ad Council.
Have a question or an opinion? Call Lynn Cullen at 412-316-3381 or email lynn at pghcitypaper.com. Now, more with Lynn Cullen Live.
All right, I just wanted to share a little bit more from this article.
You got a call.
I have a call. I'm not sharing. Hello. Okay, let me share. Two of the leading theories of what this is involve the proliferation of single-parent families. The girls who grow up with only one parent, and that parent is typically the mother, they fare almost as well on average as girls with two parents. And that's through studies and stuff. It looks like girls coming out of single-parent families do pretty much as well as two-parent families. Boys do not. But then, look at schools. As I said, girls start school way, way, way ahead of boys. And then the school somehow should, you would think, address that. And it appears, according to this article, that they actually fail not only to close that gap, they increase it. The behavioral advantage that girls have over boys is even larger in 5th grade than it is in kindergarten. By then, the average girl is at the 60th percentile of an index of social and behavioral skills, while the average boy is at the 40th percentile. That's in the 5th grade. So, I don't know. I think educators don't know what to do. Our schools don't know what to do. Parents are part of the problem.
One of the things that I would like to see done is to have more men in
teachers.
Elementary education.
That is correct. And this article does mention that little boys do not see men in these authority roles, and they often don't have men at home either. Now we've got a caller. Hello, caller.
Yes, I want to talk about the whole girls advancing faster than boys thing and behavioral problems.
Yeah.
Clarence, by the way.
Yes.
Just real quick, the kids in the what was it? The guy said the boys were acting up wherever he was.
At Phipps Conservatory.
Yeah, Phipps. Yeah. You put me in like a bunch of flowers and woods looking thing. I'm turning into, at 5 years old, I'm turning into a hunter or something. That's natural.
Yeah.
But
okay.
You know that I do caricatures, so I did a couple proms so far, and I always ask the kids, what are you going to do, when you leave school, what are you going to school for? All of the girls, every single one of them that I've drawn, and we're talking a lot. Some were going into nursing, but there were doctors, biologists, scientists, engineers. I'm like shocked. Guys, I don't know. I haven't made up my mind yet. Accounting, business maybe, communications. I was amazed. Amazed at how many girls were going into the sciences and engineering.
Yep.
And all the young girls that I know, who are in college or in there for things in the sciences, from physics to being doctors, and it's amazing. And the boys, they're like the Navy, Marines, Army, those kind of things. It's incredible. The switch is incredible.
It's absolute. It is incredible.
It happens fast.
Yeah, but it's the girls are pulling away, I think, is what we're learning.
And another thing about this is you're seeing a backlash. It's more the old male population. I think they're seeing this, that males are losing power.
Yeah.
And influence and all that kind of good stuff. And there's this huge backlash.
Yeah.
that you're witnessing.
But, just as before, we couldn't afford to allow the talents and skills and abilities of girls to go unappreciated and to be used. Mm-hmm. Now we're in danger of letting our boys fall behind because we don't get how to help them in some way. Because their boyishness just isn't a good fit with this technological age. It's not.
No, and I think, which is the opposite of what the other guy was thinking, that the aggression and all that stuff that boys have naturally in them is being let out through the video games.
I absolutely agree. And I know my son says, why don't people understand that? If boys are shooting them up and killing people on video, that releases all that aggression.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't think people get that. It's one of those things that right now it's not the problem hasn't grown large enough that you can't just chop it down with a weed whacker, and you don't need a hacksaw and all that stuff to solve the problem. But nobody does anything when the problem is small. They wait for it to get out of hand.
Always. Always.
By the way, Montessori, for some reason, Montessori schooling techniques seem to work
better.
No matter, I have a sister now who lives in Colorado who's at a charter school with underprivileged kids, but it's a Montessori technique. And the kids are doing
the cheat in Montessori is that you aren't sitting in a desk.
That's right. It's not as constrained.
It allows the child the freedom to move and go, and sort of self-generate and motivate, and it works better at that age.
Yeah, and that's as opposed to separating the boys and the girls out, just switch the technique. It's the old technique of building little factory workers. It's played, so they have to switch.
That's right. We are using the same. Our schools are based on the same kind of system that was used when we were not even the industrial revolution, when we were an agrarian nation.
Yeah,
that's why we have the summers off. You could argue, why the hell do we have the summers off? I don't know. It's crazy.
Well, we shouldn't.
We shouldn't.
We absolutely shouldn't, and we know that. It's just hard to tell people to give up their treasured summer vacation.
What they're used to.
In this day and age, it would be nice for the parents, too.
Yeah. 3 months. I mean, come on. That's ridiculous.
3-week vacations throughout the year instead of having all of that time, and then your children don't lose
everything they learned. Right. They retain. But we're so we're so stuck. It's so hard to get anything accomplished. Clarence, thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to me again for a second day in a row.
Yeah. Yeah. Bye. Bye. Okay. And Susan, that brings us to this, this article that you sent me from the St. Louis paper that we were not aware of here. And
there's also this huge, I guess it is the huge photograph of them
the girls.
all, and they took a first in something.
Oh, they did? So I'm looking at a picture of some girls, and this was in the St. Louis paper. They were attending this national competition for in engineering and technology, and I guess, is it cities or schools? There are teams that are created, and most of them are school based, but there are also kids that are sponsored by other ways. And all of a sudden, now this is engineering and technology, and it's
a robotics competition.
Okay, the assumption would be it's going to be a bunch of boys. Well, amazingly, there are now a lot of girls showing up, and a lot of even all-girl teams. And Pittsburgh was represented by an all-girl team, and they got pictured in the St. Louis paper. Their group is called Girls of Steel. And I'll name names in case anybody knows any of these kids, and we can see if they go. They're 15 and 16 years old. Becca Volk, Heather Harrington, Molly Urbina, and Sylvie Lee, and Gigi Neeson. And Susan says they actually maybe won. They did win something. So this is, again, evidence of the girls are just... I'm speaking as the mother of a boy. This is... as a female, I'm so proud, and I love this progress that's been made. But as the mother of a boy, I'm very nervous about this. I really am. Why can't we find some damn balance? It used to be the girls were just forget it. You didn't have a chance. And now it's beginning to look like forget it for the boys. Because we haven't figured out how to help our boys, how to help them live in this new world. I mean, we're all sort of thrashing around, not sure what to do, but I don't know. Did you see, Susan, there was the most bizarre piece and little thing in the science section of the Times today?
About rats?
Yes!
That's where I thought you were going. I think it's funny.
Well, it's funny, but it's weird.
Well, we better tell them first before we editorialize.
Okay, here it is, guys. Rats and mice in a laboratory experience a ton more stress when the researcher who's in the room with them is a man instead of a woman.
They generate all sorts of stress hormones, and it doesn't. And I mean, it's just the presence of a man.
Just the presence. If a man is in the room, the mice and the rats, their levels of stress hormone, corticosterone, goes way up. And the problem is that is a hormone that acts as an analgesic, which means they don't respond as much to pain, which means that since they're being used in all these studies, the very presence of a man in the lab
is screwing up the results.
Can screw up results. I can't believe this. The rodents show no such reaction to women. And, I mean, you can also just put a man's shirt in their, area, and they freak. The stress, put a woman...
So, I mean, what it is they clearly...
They smell them.
They react to that's survival reacting to what they smell as a predator.
Yeah. Anyway, this psychologist at McGill University in Canada says the amount of stress felt by the rodents the word he uses is massive in the presence of men. And to think that this doesn't have, really huge repercussions for research is ridiculous, because rodents are used for 90+% of all the research that gets done in this world.
Well, it's time for those girls to get rid of another myth and don't go eek when you see a mouse and get yourself into the lab, because there's going to be a lot of jobs.
A lot of jobs there for girls in laboratories, and all these guys are going to have to go away. Or they'll have to figure out some way.
The other room behind glass.
Or they're going to have to figure out some way to spray them with, female pheromones or something. So they're... mask their maleness so that the rats and mice don't get nuts. Because if a researcher's gender might be skewing these results, that's really bad. You got to throw those results out. Jeez. I find that just fascinating. Unbelievable. All right. And I believe...
The other thing that I found fascinating, and I didn't even read the article, was that yet again our friend the fruit fly was on the science pages. And it just is fascinating to me that from the time I was, first looking at science in high school, fruit flies were what people were studying for one reason or another.
I know.
And, 7,000 years later, half a century later, they're still studying
fruit flies. Well, there must be a reason for that. And for some reason, I remember what fruit flies, the Latin name is, Drosophila.
Well, that's just because...
Because they're everywhere.
There hasn't been a study that didn't start with a fruit fly. It's just amazing to me.
I wonder if fruit flies react to gender. I wonder. All righty, we got to get our second break in, folks, and we shall return in just a moment.
Stick around for more with Lynn Cullen Live after this.
It's the Women in Film and Television International Summit, and it is coming right here, May 16th through the 18th at the Westin. If you are interested in the film and television industry, this is where you will want to be. Panel discussions, screening, speakers. I'm going to be emceeing a dinner Saturday night where we'll honor the director of Twilight, Catherine Hardwicke. To register, just go to WIFTISummit.org. WIFTISummit.org. Oh, by the way, the summit is open to anyone, men included.
Pittsburgh City Paper's Travel Guide magazine is available now. Pick up one today for a look at great travel destinations in PA, Ohio, New York, and West Virginia. Plus the Silkscreen Film Festival, food trucks, and news of the weird. Pittsburgh City Paper available at over 1,700 locations throughout Western Pennsylvania. And on the web at pghcitypaper.com, your smartphone at citypapermobile.com, and at the iPhone App Store and Google Play.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
All righty. Two of our male listeners have chimed in via email. Let me just share their observations. Roger says, I'm not sure if this is, apropos, but it's an observational. He says, it's been a long time since my daughter was a little girl, but she was way ahead of the boys in her class from preschool up until high school. And now his wife and he are playing pseudo-grandparents to a lot of young boys on our street. And there are no girls for some reason. He says, the boys have the attention span of a gnat, except for one who's very effeminate. He says, it's weird what you notice in 7-year-olds. He said he's very sensitive and clued into people and children on the street and coordinates all the games with his peers and some of us grown-ups. I don't know if there's a point to my observation, just something I've noticed. Okay, and then Mike in Philly, who is a school teacher. So this is a good perspective to hear. He writes, as you know, I'm a teacher. In my school, there is not a male teacher until 3rd grade, and there's only one. There's none in the 4th, 2 in the 5th, 1 in the 7th, 2 in the 8th. Each grade has 4 teachers. So that means in our K through 8 school, of the 36 teachers, 6 are men. The main reason for this? Men simply don't want to teach because it's dangerous. When I started teaching, men in my field came to me and told me over and over again, I must be crazy, watch out, be careful, etc., because so many male teachers are accused of doing something inappropriate. If not, it not only can ruin your career, but your life. Women teachers don't get accused of it, but strangely enough are now committing more of the crimes against students. Also, we need to change the hours of school. Here. I see kids drag into school at 7:30 in the morning, completely exhausted. You can't get any response from the students until about 9 a.m. Then from 2 to 3, they're all falling asleep. School should be 9 to 4. Makes it healthier for the kids, easier for the parents. All right. Any thoughts on any of that?
I agree with every single bit of that.
Yeah, I do too. Okay, so here's another, I didn't see this before. Here is another email. This is from Ginger. Susan, yesterday I was pointing out some items I'd seen in the Sunday paper. When I was stuck at O'Hare, I read it cover to cover to cover to cover. And this was about how interactions with strangers are as beneficial to your mental health as interaction with those close to you. And that little interactions with the clerk, with the person on the bus, with whatever, if you do those in a positive way, it can make, absolutely a difference in how you feel. So
a huge difference.
Huge. So Ginger writes this, just had to write a line, tell you how your program may have changed my life a bit once again, which adds to a list of the many ways listening to you has made a difference. Always wanted to tell you how the urban gardeners have also, after several years now of helping me plant beautiful things, they become some of my best friends. Oh, wow. But as for your most recent contribution, I knew what you said about the importance of engaging strangers you meet during the day was true, especially for people who live alone. I have read that study and I've tried it before, but eventually I sink back into my rather shy self. I have my earbuds in my ears as I walk my dog, and I even cross a street sometimes so I don't have to engage with someone. I use the excuse that my dog is over-friendly, but actually I know it's because it's easier just to stay in my own thoughts. But after listening to your program yesterday, I made myself say one thing beyond thank you to the clerk at the state store. I think they're usually a dour lot. I think that's dour is how it's pronounced, themselves. But this fellow lit up when I spoke to him. And then we got into a 5-minute exchange on the subject of daydreaming. We talked about getting in trouble with teachers because of daydreaming, about getting important inspiration from daydreaming, and even about the calming effects of being prone to daydreaming. There was a bit of a spring in my step as I walked to my car, and I remember that man's face this morning in particular detail, how kind and friendly he was. I wonder who I'll meet today, and I wonder if I can keep it up. Ah!
Keep it up, keep it up.
Keep it up. Oh, Ginger.
I would be so lonely if I didn't talk to random strangers all the time.
Yeah. I need to push myself. Sometimes I do. I tend to be sort of, isolated. But it is so true. As you engage, it just... You know, the thing is, Ginger, you'll keep doing it because of the positive... You know, if behavioral scientists know anything, you got a great reward yesterday for doing that. And we respond to that kind of reinforcement, right? You did it. You got rewarded. You're still happy today as a result of what you did yesterday.
And that doesn't mean that sometimes you can't keep your earbuds in and enjoy your own company.
That's true, too. But there you go.
Especially when you're in a store and you're in a situation where people are ignoring that person that's checking you out or doing whatever, or even worse, only interacting negatively. It not only is nice for you, but it's so nice for them to have someone just say something nice. Just, interact.
That's correct. The world would be such a better place.
Well, it would.
Okay, so Susan... I'm sorry, one more educational thing I just want to, because we got you here. This Common Core. Common Core? Oh, yeah. Okay, now, so I'm reading now about how the Republicans are engaging in more fratricide over this. There are a lot of Republicans wanting to make this into a political issue, that this is about big government, when in fact the Common Core was created by the states and by a group of governors, bipartisan, tons of Republican governors. I just don't understand. I mean, I don't know if the Common Core they came up with is any good, but the Republicans' effort to make it into something it absolutely is not. I mean, it did come up from the bottom more than federal down. So why are they trying to say that?
Because they have a set of talking points, and one of them is that big government's in your lives.
Yeah, but
so an imposed curriculum, and they don't care who it is. An imposed curriculum can easily fit into the talking point, and apparently the people that buy their talking points are infamous for not checking their facts, so they can say whatever they damn please.
Well, like Rand Paul apparently said that the curriculum, this curriculum originates out of Washington. Totally untrue. 44 states voluntarily participate in the Common Core standards, developed in part by Republican governors. And and Jeb Bush, who's potentially, the nominee of the Republicans, is not. He knows the Common Core is. He says we can't expect our children to compete when we have no standards or we have dumbed down standards. I mean, he's in favor of it. But so just to let people know, the Republicans, they're eating their own when they do this. This is nuts. God. Okay.
And I don't know how I stand on the Common Core.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know enough about it.
What I hear is that there's a general worry that it's utilitarian in its own way and at the expense of of literature and arts and anything that we would think of as the humanities. And the counter argument is that it's woven throughout. Things are designed to explain themselves by in every walk of your life. I mean, they've been doing this forever, but one worries about liberal arts. That's all I am.
Oh,
there's something to be said for just reading Dickens, because there's something to be said for reading Dickens.
Right. God help the liberal arts. We're going to have such a, I don't know. It's sad. It's sad. So, Susan,
Well, that coupled with apparently computers have an actual impact on anyone's ability to sit down and read. Because I've noticed in the past few years, I used to be just a voracious reader of books. And I find it hard to sit down and read even some of my most famous authors. There's always something else to do on my iPad or on my computer. And so I'm hopping around all the time instead of just sitting in a chair for a solid day reading a book, which I spent my whole childhood doing.
Well, Jess is nodding her head and saying that this has happened to her, too.
Yes, and I heard someone discuss it, and who is a novelist, and finding to her horror that she couldn't read, and how she said she just sat herself down and forced herself to, for a few hours a day until she retrained her brain, which I immediately started to do, and I think I'm going to start to read actual books again.
Well, I think that that's something you should fight to retain, but quite clearly what this bodes ill, because if people because
we're not only devaluing it, we're training our brains away from it.
That is correct. Everything's got to be short, quick, snappy, and talk about the attention span of a gnat. That's what we're going to have. Mm-hmm. An inability to focus. Because there's always something better or maybe, there's so much available that I guess you're always thinking, let me check this. Let me see what's there. If anything happened here. And you get this sense like, so what if something happens somewhere and I don't hear about it for 7 hours? So what? But people just checking
mostly I just miss that wonderful feeling of being curled in a chair and not wanting to or having to go or do anything and just drop into another world that I would, in short order, be sorry to have to give up.
Mm-hmm. That's scary.
It is scary.
Well, because we're going into some brave new world that you don't like it, in many ways.
Well, but it also speaks to, continuing and different challenges in education.
That's right, but that's why I said, I mean the fact that we
people
have
that were trained to do it now can't.
Yeah.
How can we expect little minds that have never actually had their ability to stretch their attentions? If it never happens, it never happens.
Oh boy. I'm losing my voice for some reason. I am. I don't know why. I can't get it. I can't.
Spring. It's spring.
Spring? Spring? No, that didn't help either. I'm just all congested. I think it's post-nasal trip. It's pretty disgusting. Hey, it was. Hey, but I just have to share this because this is really exciting. Pittsburgh has gotten another feather in our cap. Apparently, of all the cities that were surveyed from satellite, I guess, looking down on cities via satellite, they are able to ascertain what percentage of a city is green. What cities have the biggest canopy is what they're calling this. And, Susan, I don't know if St. Louis was... I mean, I don't know.
So the most trees from above is what you're saying.
That is correct. And Pittsburgh won. 42% of Pittsburgh's land is visibly green from space. That's the highest of any city. The next highest was Austin, Texas, with 37%. Philly came in last at 20%. So Pittsburgh, I remember once flying into Pittsburgh, and there were 2 Chinese women behind me. And they clearly had never flown in here before. And they were just going nuts when we started approaching because it was so green. And they couldn't believe it. They were saying, my God, look at all those. My God, they couldn't believe it. I talked to them later saying, I heard you, She said, well, we don't have trees. You don't see trees like this. Good God, what's happening in China? They've cut all their trees down? What? Jeez.
Well, or in urban areas, the
that's
smog's
true.
So bad, what can grow?
Okay, and also it's just all concrete now. It's concrete. But
and that's because Pittsburgh has
all those hills,
large residential part of a city.
Well, that's true, and we also have all those hills that that
where
are hard to build on.
Where trees grow and there aren't buildings.
Right. I don't know. So I think that's it.
Okay.
Susie, you have a wonderful day and dodge those tornadoes.
Oh, right now it's sunshiny and beautiful.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, well then enjoy. Okay, toodles. Bye. Tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's just moi. I think. But then, I'm notoriously clueless. But hope you'll join me, for sure. Okay? Bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.